everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar hosted by the Better Business Bureau serving the Northwest. Next slide, please. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce our presenter and myself. My name is Jade Garcia, and I'm the Public Relations Coordinator at the Better Business Bureau. And I will be the moderator for today's webinar. We have Jim Tobin speaking with us today. Jim has extensive management consulting experience, including 20 years at Apple, where he helped organize around the globe, learning to use technology to research their goals. He has earned over 30 achievement awards for outstanding contributions to the iPhone maker's success. He currently serves as the product manager at Alliance Enterprises, a software company headquartered in the Puget Sound area that was recently recognized as one of the fastest growing private companies in the US by Inc. magazine. So for today's webinar, we will have a Q&A section with Jim at the end of his presentation. So feel free to ask any questions in the webinar toolbar at that time. So speaking of questions, before we get started, I'd like to ask everyone a question. I'd like to get a sense of where everyone's coming from, so please answer this poll. It asks, is your business a new business just getting started, so open for 1 year or less, or a mature business open for 1 year or more, or are you someone preparing to start a business and would like to know more about the growth stages? Or if it doesn't apply to you, you can also click NA. I'll wait a moment to let everyone answer. Great, so I'm seeing a lot of mature businesses, so 1 year or older, and one new business, so 1 year or less, and then just someone starting to prepare a business. So that looks great. Thanks for attending, everyone. So with all of that said, let's get started, and I'll hand it over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Jade. Good morning, everyone. We are gathered because we want to talk about thriving in the 5 stages of business growth. And as I was thinking through the way to name the 5 stages, I knew that what might be on your mind would be things starting from scratch, and the 5th stage might be retiring early. But those actually aren't the 5 stages that we think about. We think about the early years of a business where you are just trying to survive chaos. And we're going to talk about how to thrive in the chaos and how to control it. We think about learning to delegate, that's a major challenge for many people who are entrepreneurial and start their own business. And then as you're moving through some of the growth, you're hiring employees, and at some point some of those employees start to check out a little bit during the day. So we humorously call them zombie employees. And then as your business matures, you move into a phase of growth that's called reining in, what we call reining in process, where processes become paramount in the mindset of many of the employees. And then lastly, we'll talk about that period, that stage of growth where you're trying to stretch, move your business forward. So one of the ways I like to think about this is that you're up in the morning and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, perhaps as you're shaving or putting on makeup, and there's this voice that comes to you that is unrelenting. There's no diplomacy in it. It is the screeching you that is asking you questions about how you're running your business, and that'll define each of these 5 stages. So I ask you, and this isn't a polling question, this is just for you to think about and reflect on. Has your mirror asked you, okay, hero, why is our company so chaotic? Or has the mirror maybe asked, can you truly trust no one for the important stuff? Or how about, what'd you do to tune employees out? And why are you letting our business slip? And then lastly, maybe you get asked, What happened to that edgy energy that drove us forward? Each of these 5 questions will come up throughout the course of running a business. And so the next thing I would ask you to think about is, those are all the questions that your mirror could be asking you. Which is the one that the mirror is asking you right now? Because that'll help you understand where in this 5 stages where you want to pay the closest attention. But I want to make sure that you understand everybody experiences all 5 of these. And so you will pay attention, because at some point you're going to be in each of these stages. So with that said, let's start and look at surviving chaos. And we're going to take a look at what it means to survive in chaos, and then give some practical advice on how to thrive in that chaos. So to recall, she's asking, okay, hero, why is our company so chaotic? And this is a period of time in a company's growth where there's a lot going on. There's people doing different things. And generally speaking, in the middle of it all, you're going to find a hero, somebody who's making it all happen, who's pulling it together. But there's a lot of chaos going on. So some of the characteristics here are, you may have had that time where you sold a new product and you're making a lot of money and everybody wants it. And that's a lot of fun to be in, and you're glad you have a hero who's bringing that in. But some things start to happen. Investors in the company, they say that they see your success happening, and so their expectations towards you begin to rise. You and your friends and your employees are pushing for more big deals. Your customers are looking for more product from you, more changes. It's all coming in at the same time. You've got more customers coming to you asking for things that you maybe don't deliver yet. And the pressure is building on you, but you're the hero, so you're taking care of it. And so in this time and stage of your business growth, there are some things that we would suggest that you do to combat some of these things, get them into control so that you can thrive in this stage. So the first of those is, surprisingly, write down your goals. Most business owners that I work with have actually not written down their goals. And it's not so much that the act of writing them down is the thing, but you want to get them out in front of your employees. And I don't mean in the break room, I mean making them a part of the daily conversation that everybody has around the work that they're going to be working on at any given time. So if your goals are shared with the team, that helps chaos, because instead of everybody off doing the things that they think are important, they're now thinking in the context of, what I'm planning to do must relate to the goals that ownership has shared with us. The next thing that we advise is that when people are planning work, is they take a look at each thing that they're going to work on and evaluate it in what's called the SMART methodology. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And those are key things to ask. Expect your employees to be able to say about the work they're planning. And starting at the back, if you think about timely, what we're really saying there is that if you decide that it doesn't need to be worked on this quarter, this month, this period, perhaps it should be pushed off till a later time. At the beginning, is it specific? Well, can you actually describe to each other what it is that you're planning to work on? And that clarity alone will help rein in the chaos, because people are having to describe to one another what they're working on. And then measurable, is there a way to measure it rather than just say improve employee relations or improve customer satisfaction? You've got to have a way to measure it to bring in chaos, so that everybody knows how it's going to be measured and what they can do to contribute to measuring it. Is it achievable? You're trying not to ask employees to set work that they don't have the tools and resources to achieve, and realistic is right in there with that. So the last part of that piece of advice is that it's tied to yours, and that's those goals that you wrote down. If all of your employees are writing out the work they plan to work on, and they can answer how it relates back to your goals, your chaos is going to be diminished significantly. When employees write out the work that they're planning to do, the best way that you have to make sure that their work is all going towards your goals and not off towards just their goals or in different directions, is that you review them to make sure that they are aligned. And It may not be that a wording of an objective tells you that it's aligned, but a conversation with the employee about how this objective aligns to the goal is just an incredible conversation to have that helps everybody be working in the same direction. Something that might be new to most of us who have not been in business management for some time is a notion of creating a scorecard. If you think of golf or bowling, you know, in golf there's that little card you carry around where you record your strokes, and if you're in bowling, you're recording how you did in each frame. And in business, if you have written down your objectives, then you have a way to track the progress on them, and that's what a scorecard is. We look at it as a team effort because most work in business gets done by teams. So you create a team scorecard. And if you think about it from a chaos perspective, a scorecard is there for everybody on the team to reflect on and keep track of the work they're working on so they don't go off the rails. When you have a scorecard, one of the things you do with it is you track progress. If the scorecard is in paper, then you're just making notes and jotting annotations about how you're doing, how you're progressing towards the end of the work that you've planned to work. If it's in a computer or an Excel spreadsheet or something, you may have numerics that go with it. But the important thing is that by tracking progress in a public, visible way to every member of the team and also to management, everybody knows how their success is being achieved throughout the course of a game, whatever that scorecard covers. And when you have that, the chaos becomes not so much chaos, meaning activity is directed in all directions and all manner, but it's activity that's all directed in the same direction towards the same goals. And what you find is then employees actually become more excited about what they're doing because everybody's working in the same direction, and they have that whole sense of the whole team moving down the field or moving in for the score or whatever metaphor you want to use. But it turns what can be a frustrating experience of chaos into an enjoyable work experience that's really helpful for all the stages. So that's what we think about in surviving chaos. A few things there to help align everybody and get work going on the things that matter to you, the goals that you've written down. So then we'll come over and we'll look at learning to delegate. It turns out that entrepreneurs and most managers aren't taught how to delegate. They have to learn it. And so we've got some tips and advice here to help with that. So we reflect back on our doppelganger in the mirror. She was screaming at us, "Can you really trust no one for the important stuff?" And that's a situation that if you are your own business owner and you've been growing a little bit, you've been hiring more people, businesses coming in, and the workload's coming up, and you realize you need help. And you probably hired people because you need help, and now you're confronted with that decision of what can I hand out, give authority to other people to deliver on. And so some attributes of being in that situation are, this is common to business owners, that as they grow, their commitments are starting to grow as well. They've got more employees they're responsible for. They've got loans that they've taken out, IOUs from friends and family. They might have made some personal guarantees to the bankers. They may have leases that they're taking out on facilities. All of these pressures are bearing down on the shoulders of the business owner. And it means that quite often our response to that is, I need to do all this because I'm the only one who knows how to do it. I founded the company and I just can't. I'd like to give it up and turn it over to others, but the responsibility is on me to make sure it happens. And so the business owner needs to learn how to delegate. The other thing that's a potential problem or a concern is that everyone on the team has their own goals in mind, and they're working. If you haven't written down your goals, like we just spoke about in growth stage number 1, they're working on their own goals, and those may not be your goals. So that's pretty fearful. But as your business grows and you're having to take on all these tasks, your time for doing any one particular task is growing shorter and shorter, and you just can't get to it all. And that's why you're crying out for help, and you're asking how can we develop what amounts to trust in our employees to give them the authority to do work without your direct supervision all the time. And last bullet item there is, if you're in that mode right now, I want you to understand you are not alone. This is, I almost call it endemic in small business for sure, and perhaps in even larger business where managers they see their career on the line and they forget to give up authority to do work and learn by doing that they actually can trust their employees. So, steps to combat this. Let's look at the kind of things that each of us can do. The first thing is, if you're thinking about this from the context of being able to trust your employees, so the right thing to do is to make sure that everyone who's involved in the team effort has a role. And on different things you're working on, they'll have different roles. But the idea here is, by spreading out the roles, you can trust that the work is going to get accomplished and accomplished well. So the RACI model up there in parentheses stands for the responsible party, the approver, there's a consulted role, and there's an informed role. So you want to make sure that any work that's getting done actually has somebody who carries that big R. They're the responsible party. It actually may be 2 or 3 people who are responsible for any given task that they're working on. But they should have somebody who's looking in and helping and is the approver. So the approver has the job of saying, yes, this is valid, this is where we need to take this, or this approach is going to work for the way that we do business. You'll find a context, but keep in mind it's just for approving the work that those who are responsible for it, they're going to get the work done, and somebody is checking in and making sure that it's all kosher that way. Consulted is the people within the organization who have advice, have experience. They can consult on a project, but they don't carry the big R. Informed is going to be those groups that need to know that something's happening so that they can be prepared on their end, or they can support it in other ways. So quite often a marketing department will want to know that there's new product coming out, or a new offering that they need to get behind and develop material for. So the RACI model is a way that helps a business owner, or somebody who's got to delegate, know that the work is covered. All the roles that they used to play and their little chunked up time is going to be handled by other people within the organization. And those people are identified. They can go and talk with them and see how things are going. Next up is just a comment here that the goals that you have, they guide what gets worked on. But when you're delegating, you have to let the teams decide how it gets done. That's where they get to apply their creativity. They get to surprise you with new ways of doing things that you wouldn't have thought of. They get to bring their experience to bear. It makes them a more valued part of the team. They feel more valued. They feel respected. And when that's happening, you'll find that your trust in the work that they do grows right along with their commitment. Across the organization, you'll find that different teams, they know what they need to work on, and it turns out that quite often they're all working on things that are linked to one another. They're associated with one another, and your job is to help identify that those synergies exist and promote them, and make sure that the teams are not working isolated on parallel things, but they're working together on parallel things. So that marketing team that's preparing material for a new product is working hand in hand with the product team to make sure that the messaging is coherent, cohesive, and the product team knows that the marketing team is calling it this, that, or the other thing. So it's a communication between the teams, but it really, when it's taking place, you'll feel more confident that you don't need to be stepping in and taking care of all of that yourself. If we go back to the notion of our scorecard, doing scorecards in paper form, it's a little hard to see linkages between teams. But if you have an electronic form of scorecard, it's much easier to create those linkages and help everybody see that the work they're doing is shared by the different teams within your company. The other part that you want to help build your trust is being able to see the progress they're making, and when they have obstacles, things that you need to step in and help with. And what you find with scorecards and agreement on the work that needs to be done is that the teams are able to describe what is progress and what are obstacles, and they can bring those to the attention of others who can help. And really, this trust thing is all about your visibility into the work that's being done, that it's getting covered, people are on the same page as you, they're making progress. When you see that, you can feel more confident in stepping back and letting teams do the work that you used to do. So that's the whole notion of trust being gained. So if you put all those things together, if you pursue those in your line of work, you will find that you can trust your teams, and they'll be more powerful as a result of you giving them that responsibility. So let's take a step then into the middle and talk about, you have zombie employees. This is a scenario where I think we're all, if you've been in work for any period of time, you know that this happens. And so your mirror is asking, what'd you do to tune our employees out? And this is perhaps it's misplaced blame, but that's what mirrors do, right? They ask you the hard questions, and you've got to sort out whether they're valid or not. But you've probably seen this kind of scenario in your workplace. The range goes from those who are daydreaming to those who are ensuring that their eyelids don't have light leakage problems. And we want to talk for a minute about how to get everybody back and engaged. We call that waking up the zombie employees. It turns out this actually is a huge problem. Gallup did a study a couple of years ago that showed that 2 out of 3 workers are not engaged at work. In fact, at the bottom there in light gray, you see where their numbers are 30% are engaged, and that means at any given time they're actually focused on the work that you would like them to be working on. 50% in disengaged. Now that can mean that they aren't working on things for your company, or that they are chatting with one another around the water cooler about the game last night or whatever. Worrisome is 20% are in sabotage mode. So they're potentially they're talking up the competition, they're doing interviews for other positions, or if you think about it, let's take the gentleman in the middle there who might, I can't quite tell from his expression, but he might actually be paying attention. But part of his peripheral vision is showing him that other people on the team, they're not even working, and he's having to carry the load. So in a way, that person who's sleeping on the job is sabotaging the work ethic of the others around him. If you don't deal with it, you're really cutting your business opportunity. So that gentleman who's sleeping, he's a real drag on productivity, not just because he's not carrying his weight, but he's sending a message to others. We call that a culture killer. And when Gallup did this study, and they did the projection out across the U.S., they said $500 billion in costs based on these problems. So it's worthwhile that we spend some time and talk about how do we re-engage these zombies. And there's a lot of research into what causes people to not be engaged. And so let's take a look at a few of those. First is share your vision. And we started off in stage 1 talking about writing down your goals. Here you're sharing your vision. And the idea is that employees come to work for you because they want a job, but predominantly they want to work for a company that's doing things they want to do themselves, they want to be supportive of. And so by sharing your vision, you help them know whether they're working for a company that's where they want to be. A lot of research shows that one of the 5 intrinsic motivators that the people guide themselves by is they want to be involved in something bigger than themselves. And if that's your vision, if your organization is trying to produce the best tires that a car can operate on, that's your vision. You want employees there who share that vision, and they want to be involved in that, and they want to know that their work matters. The other way to make sure that the zombies are waking up is you give them real-time rewards. And we're not talking about the $5 bill in an envelope or something for somebody doing a good job. These are ways that there's the pat on the back and the attaboys that give people a little endorphin rush, an appreciation, a note that you are watching the work they do and that the work they're doing matters. The other thing is you are the leader. You want to shape the work habits that you want to see, and that means that you're modeling the kind of work ethic that you want to see. It means that you're rewarding those who are making strides and effort to behave that way. And I would say, as a parent of 3 now grown adults, that you want to ignore the habits that you don't want. Employees, don't comment on them, don't reward them. Let it be by positive reinforcement that your employees see how to work. They'll respect you for it. One thing we like to do is help companies make a game of it, that this should be fun, work should be fun. If it's aligned towards your goals and it's part of the vision and mission that everybody's there for, those real-time rewards can actually be fun little things. Give them a sticky note badge kind of thing that promotes the work that they've been doing in the way that you want to. And then celebrate and show what winning looks like. You want the employees who were sleeping on the job or dazing out the window to realize that they can be a part of a winning team, and all they have to do is redirect their energy and participate with you. So encouraging fun is saying, let's make our workplace fun. It's a place where employees want to come to, they want to be a part of, they don't want to risk the business not growing along with them. So again, put those things together. What we see is that you have greater engagement among your employees. They're more in tune, they're more in line, and they enjoy working and they work harder. So the next stage that comes up in business is what we call reining in process. And our doppelganger there in the mirror asks, why are you letting our business slip? And it may not be slipping so much as stagnating, but the two go pretty much hand in hand. And the reason we call it reining in process is when you get your business maturing somewhat, processes start to take over. And at the extreme, you can end up with something like this that delineates pretty much everything from how to lick stamps for the envelopes to how to manufacture a new piece of hardware. And there's reasons for it, but there's cautions that go along with it. So if you're in this stage of growth, you're probably feeling like you got this nice business rhythm. Processes are in place to take some of the risk out of the work that everybody's doing. But one of the consequences is people stick to those processes, and if you're not pushing it, the innovation flame is fading on you because people are more prone to make sure that the process is followed and you don't veer and step out of it. For some managers, it leads to complacency, that they can sit back and know that things are just humming along fine because we've got a process to cover that. And we need to kick that a little bit and say, that's going to lead to a business that is just stagnating or slipping backwards as competition comes along. So some practical steps for dealing with that, we'll break that out into 3 areas. There's the individual level, there's what we can do for teams, and there's what the leadership needs to do. At the individual level, we say go back to your roots, and that's not loose business advice. That is saying you started a business, you had guts, you had energy behind it, and you had a vision, a passion for it. And when the processes have slipped in and you've gone through several stages of growth, you're kind of accepting that. But the caution is go back to your roots, find that passion, kick this back, expand some direction, do something. Reviewing the lessons learned is to say we've got experience behind us on what happened early in the business, what happened through some of these stages of growth. Let's go back and figure out how we overcame them and see if those reasons are still valid. Do they still carry the day when we've got processes in place to cover them? We may need to strike some of those back and figure out what were the ones that succeeded in moving us forward into growth. And so we can overlay those on top of all these things and make for a stable business and push our business forward. At the team, we've talked a little bit about this in some of the other stages, but the processes sometimes are in place to communicate and keep teams aligned and working together in a coordinated fashion. And there may be some adjustments you want to make to that so the process isn't king. Move around that. Let me talk a little bit there about the leadership level. The performance metrics that you're looking at, when we were talking in the scorecard about measuring progress, we want to know that even in our process phase, we have metrics that show us that we are performing and not just maintaining the business, but metrics that show us that we're actually growing. We're improving the capability of our employees, improving the capability of our plant, our product line, our strategic awareness, et cetera. And those things need to be aligned to our goals. So when we say write down your goals at stage 1, stage 4 is a time when you may be reevaluating those goals, seeing if you've already accomplished a significant portion of them, and you need to reevaluate them and keep them relevant with what you're trying to do as a business. Go back to the individual level, you're examining your roots, you're figuring out where you want to take it. Now you look and see if your medium and long range goals are relevant to the new thoughts about how you want to move beyond the process phase. So all of those things come together, and you're making some strategic changes. And I'll say that bullet item is full of communication, clarity, visibility. You got to make those strategic changes available for all of your employees to get behind again, just like we were talking in stages 2 and 3. When you're there, you've moved through those stages of growth, or you're back and forth in those stages of growth. At some point here, we need to stretch. We need to recover that edgy energy that drove us forward and help us shut down our doppelganger in the mirror to be more polite to us a little bit. So how do we do that? Well, there's a scenario where you started business and you had this creative idea, and you're now in this stage where that's taken care of, and we got to come up with new ways to stretch. You may recognize this as friends or employees comment that we liked it the way it used to be. We had this inventive nature, and now we're kind of bogged down. We need to stretch. You're settling for the status quo because you're successful. There's no bad point there. It just is what it is, but it's not going to keep you moving forward and growing. And that's what we need to do to stay relevant here. Your business is matured, but at the same time, it kind of becomes boring, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You're looking for that excitement. You're not finding it here. So at this point in time, so you need to stretch and add things in that make your business no longer boring for you. I like to point out in chart form that when you grow your business, anytime there's profit is that delta between what somebody will pay for a product and what you expend to produce it. And so if that profit grows and grows and grows, that creates a gap that other companies will come along and try to take away from you. And so you need to be on top of it and stretching so that you can cover that gap and recover your profitability. If you don't do some of these things, if you're not innovating, you can end up like, remember when Detroit was kind of down on their luck as they were not innovating in the automobile industry, and other nations came along and really took the reins from them. They've turned that around. So our last bullet item is, if you don't innovate, you might as well find an attorney who can help you merge, be acquired, or go out of business. But we don't want that to happen to anybody here. We want to grow our businesses. So some of the steps we can take to grow our business are going to be looking at what it takes. So this is telling you as a business owner to step aside from working in the business and instead work on the business and start thinking about ways to stretch your business, give it some new opportunities for growth. Really turn to the employees, make it a part of their annual work that they come up with ways to stretch themselves, learn new things. Learn new things that are in line with what your business is trying to do, and that's your goal and vision. But give them an opportunity, give them time in their day, time in their workload to work on themselves. When you're writing out a scorecard, people are pretty much working on the work that they know they need to do, but encourage them to write some stretch objectives. And stretch means that if a team has decided that they're going to produce 5 new widgets this quarter, ask them to add a stretch objective to that would be build a 6th one. It's communicating to them that you have an expectation that they're going to grow, they're going to stretch themselves, and that you're giving them permission to do that. So also communicate to them, probably this is a language thing. If an employee comes to you and says, I'd like to take a risk here, boss, you understand that that's a risk they're going to take. It may not work out. Give them permission. You're both understanding that it's a risk, and it's beneficial to the company to allow them to stretch and add risk to what they're doing. You'll find that it brings back fun, and as long as the things they're working on that are stretching are in line with your goals and visions for the company, that it's purposeful work, a purposeful risk, and they'll appreciate that you're giving them that opportunity to do that. And that will, across your organization, that sort of perspective will really help your teams, help you stretch and grow and continue to be a vibrant business as community and conditions change around you. So in brief, those are the 5 stages of growth that we've been looking at. You will encounter them throughout the life of your business. One way or another, they're going to come up. And now you have some of the tools that will help you deal with them. And here at Alliance, we've been through all of these. One of the things we saw when we went to the Inc. 5000 conference was that other businesses were in all of these, they were just like us. They had all of these same phases they were going through. And so I'll just share with you briefly that we approached this whole scorecarding thing and working with our employees. First we did it in Excel spreadsheets, and then we turned out we built a tool. Being a software company, we built a tool in-house that deals with this, and we call it MyObjectives. And if you would like to take a look at it at some point in the future, give me a call. We can help show you how we've done this, how it's improved our business line, and maybe it's helpful to you. But it's just a company sharing with you how we've achieved success, and take it for that. So Jade, we're at a point now where we can take some questions from people. Do we have any coming in?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So like Jim said, we'd like to open it up for questions now. To submit your questions, type your questions in the webinar toolbar. I'll give you a moment to type them in, and I'll read them aloud to Jim as they come in.
So Mary, I think we'll probably make a copy of the PowerPoint available either through Jade, or we'll do it through our website. But absolutely, and this webinar has been recorded and will be available on the Better Business Bureau webinar series website. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jade, but that's up for how long?
It'll be up on Wednesday of next week, and it'll stay there on our YouTube page and our webinar homepage for as long as YouTube is up.
Okay.
One question is coming in. It asks, can you explain the SMART again?
Explain what?
SMART.
SMART. So that's a way of evaluating a written description of work that asks a team to evaluate it and say, we believe that this work as it's defined is specific, meaning we can tell by reading it that it's something that we know how to work on, that it has an end point. The typical phrasing of an objective, usually it's tied to a key result. So you say things like, this is the work I want to do as measured by, this is how I'll measure it. So produce 3 PowerPoints for the Better Business Bureau as measured by having given them to Jade within the time frame she asked for them. So that's sort of the specific nature of it. Then there, and a little bit of the measurable there too on the key result side. So, having employees describe work they want to do that has no way to measure it is going to be difficult for everybody to agree on whether they've completed it or not. So you want to make it measurable. Achievable simply means that you've got the tools and the wherewithal to get it done. Realistic means it's something that this team can accomplish in the time frame that it's been given. And timely means it's something that you do need to work on now.
Thanks, Jim. So we have another question. We are an online company, so we have a lot of employees who are remote. Can you explain the software you created for the scorecards again?
Sure, and that's a perfect example, because when we were doing it on spreadsheets, or if you do it on paper, that's really hard to share with remote employees without a lot of diligent effort. And so the software we created is web-based, and so we have remote employees too. And the idea there is that they're able to see what's being planned and participate in the planning of the work, and just be a part of that whole process. So I would suggest, if you really want to delve into it, hop on over to myobjectives.com, and we've got a whole marketing website there around all of that. So I think that's probably the best way to explain it in this time frame, in this format.
Perfect. Thanks, Jim. It looks like there aren't any more questions, but if you do have any more questions, Jim, can you head to the contact slide?
Yes.
So are both of our informations. If you'd like to contact BBB, you can email me at publicrelations@thebbb.org, or call me, or you can also email Jim.
I was just going to say, myself, thank you for all of the people who have joined us, and I hope this has been relevant to you. We at Alliance Enterprises have a long history around putting people back to work and helping people work and enjoy work. And so I would really love to hear from you and help you, and not from a sales perspective, just to know that we've got other businesses that are trying to grow, and we're happy to share in more detail how we've grown and what we've learned by working with companies who are growing. It's a real earnest, open invitation to get in contact and keep the conversation going.
Yeah, thanks again, Jim, for speaking with us. I would like to remind everyone that today's webinar will be posted on BBB's YouTube page, as well as BBB's webinar homepage next week, like I said, by next Wednesday, if you'd like to rewatch this or share this information with others. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and please feel free to contact BBB or Jim with any further questions.
Thank you.